Extra lives in Mario games are a strange thing. Sometimes they are part of a general course you have to follow, and you'll just naturally collect them. Sometimes they're a bit out of your way. There are times where discovering a 1-up will make it try to avoid you, and others when it will hunt you down and try to claim your soul. That situation is how the Green Demon Challenge was born in Super Mario 64. For those who don't know what that is, it's basically when the 1-up is chasing you, and you essentially need to avoid it while still collecting all the red coins or retrieving the star. But I digress. One of the neat things about extra lives though, is that developers can hide them in hard to reach spots to reward a player's curiosity. In these Super Mario Galaxy games, these can be past hard button mashing challenges, or even far out of bounds that the player has to seek out. But the thing is, Super Mario 64's hidden 1-ups aren't really like that. In fact, they are perhaps the strangest 1-ups any Mario game has. Today we're going to be covering the hidden 1-up locations that we skipped over as kids, and why one particular location is by far the most absurd hidden 1-up to ever grace the Mario universe. By now, you know I like making gaming mysteries and talking about all things Mario. It's been truly awesome creating content, but I will say I often have a lot of ideas that don't always fit on my channel. Given the cutthroat nature of YouTube, sometimes variety is frowned upon. So that's why I was pretty interested when Amino reached out about their new stories feature, as it felt a bit different than the short video formats I've experienced elsewhere. People were making some pretty cool short content, so I thought I'd give it a whirl. There's a lot of odd things I encounter in games that don't always end up in my videos, so if you want to check them out, be sure to click the link in the description below, or search for Amino apps and download Amino. You can find my stories by searching for SwankyBox, and while you're there, be sure to follow me for my latest stories. Just like on YouTube, every time you watch my content on Amino, you'll be supporting me, which I greatly appreciate. So click the link in the description below, search for SwankyBox, and then check out my first story about off-limits areas that are stored behind doors in Super Mario 64. And I want to thank Amino for sponsoring this video and supporting me as a creator. If there was a tier list for green mushrooms, it'd probably unfold a lot like this video. Generally speaking, most of us were introduced to the concept of hidden 1-ups while running around outside the castle. Before heading inside, we of course jumped around and read the signs. And it was during this process where we first spotted these elusive green shrooms. These occurrences that happened here set the tone for the rest of the game too. Because we discovered a 1-up by climbing a tree, we then remember that for every stage going forward. If we saw a tree, we were subconsciously trained to go to it and climb it. This is where the concept of objects yielding mushrooms all started. While running around, we of course made our way to the water, and also noticed the coins below the bridge. Now, while we couldn't obtain these coins yet, their strange placement perplexed us. This was another hidden 1-up. After draining the water, if we wall kick and grab the coins, a 1-up spawns and falls down below for us to collect. But probably the most bizarre occurrence out here was trying to punch butterflies. So for some reason, certain butterflies when punched would turn into a 1-up. This doesn't work with every butterfly, but it's generally the ones you can't see from far away. Once you enter the area, they spawn and fly up out of the ground and scatter. Normal butterflies that follow you don't contain 1-ups, but these retreating ones do. In later levels, they can actually hurt you as well, which is pretty interesting. To my knowledge, there was never an indication that this could happen, so it was simply dumb luck if you happened to punch them at the right time. But we're only getting started here, because, like I said, the 1-ups we've described so far are what I consider general spawns. When we interact with X object, a 1-up is created because of it. And we see this repeated throughout the game. Grab the coins, climb the pole, etc. But this is where things get pretty interesting. Now, this 1-up we're covering next is another 1-up that no one would have ever known about unless someone actually told them. It's one of those absurd things that you just have to happen to do. And then you'd be sitting there dumbfounded that something just occurred. For this 1-up, we're heading to Whomps Fortress. After defeating the Whomp King, every other iteration of this level, for the remaining stars, features a giant tower fixated on top of the fortress. This tower has a secret though, but you'd honestly never realize it unless the stars magically aligned. Within this tower is actually an extra life, surprisingly. So how do you actually get it? Well, you have to randomly punch the wall on the back of it, and the wall will shatter. Now, there's absolutely no indication that this is a thing. The wall looks like every other piece of wall on the tower, and yet, this particular section crumbles under Mario's fist. To make things even more interesting, there aren't any other walls like this in the game. So imagine if you were a kid and somehow discovered this. it completely reshaped the way you play the game. From that point forward, you'd be punching and kicking every wall you could, because a wall that you thought was normal magically shattered when you punched it on Whomps Fortress. Now it's time for the one-up that I think is just absolutely absurd. But let me quickly set the stage. Everything else up until this point at least had some sort of object tied to it. Those objects would at least give you a reason to approach them. Even climbing a tree that has a hidden one-up inside still has a tree to guide your eye. Now I will say, one-up mushrooms can spawn when you walk through certain areas too, but that still only has one factor contributing to it. If a player touches this space, spawn a mushroom. But that's why this mushroom we're about to dive into is kind of mind-blowing, because it involves you having to hit 4 invisible switches without any sort of indication that you hit them, in order to spawn an extra life that no one would have ever guessed even existed. Oftentimes, hitting invisible secrets that are in a series, like in the pyramid for example, at least show a number on screen. But these don't. So let's head on over to Tall Mountain to showcase this weirdly placed one-up. In order to find this extra life, you'll need to head into the mysterious mountainside slide. Most people would look around the room they start in and then notice that an extra life is hidden behind the entrance to the side of the slide. Obviously, after discovering this, they'd probably move on, imagining they found the secret within this area. But what they're sliding away from is actually another one-up. If we rewind back to the small room, that's where the secret mushroom is hidden. If you look around the room, obviously nothing is there. You have no reason to check it out either. But if for some reason you did, you'd probably check out a corner or two and move on, as you start racing towards the star at the end of the slide. But these 4 corners are actually switches. If all 4 are hits in succession, an extra life will spawn for you to collect. Now, how anyone would know that is beyond me. Logically, and how someone would perceive the situation, would make it so one would never explore all 4 corners because they all look the same. It's just how our brain works. If you did manage to discover this as a kid, without the use of a strategy guide or anything, I highly applaud your exploratory ability, because everything about discovering this one-up is definitely working against its existence. But wait, apparently this isn't the only mushroom like this. I was about to wrap up this video, but I discovered one more that is equally just as strange. And this one is within the castle. Apparently, and for what reason I have no idea, there's an extra life located within the room that you drain the water from around the castle. If you head to the hallway section with the arrows that is normally full of water prior to draining, you'll find it. Or rather, you won't. This room right here has 4 hidden switches again in each of the corners of this area. So you'd have to linger in this room and touch all 4 corners at the bottom of this hallway to spawn it, which is super strange. Because for starters, you'd only come to this area once. And on top of that, anytime you come to this area at all, you'd run down the middle of the hallway and quickly pass through it. So it is a neat hidden puzzle, but like, why? Who thought this was a good idea? I love it because it's so strangely obscure, but it seems so random and almost like no real thought was put into it. With that said, were there any other absurd one-ups you encountered in Mario games? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And with that, thanks for tuning in for this mushroom hunt. Perhaps you'll enjoy these obscure oddities on screen now. Thanks for watching, guys and gals, and until my next video, cheers.